We're here in Regent Street, the beautiful Breitling Townhouse. You're in the thick of a Six Nations campaign. How have you been?
Yeah, I'm well. Obviously, Warbs, good to see you. Haven't seen each other in a while. It's good to link up at Breitling HQ.
The Six Nations this year, and a lot of people are saying it's going to be the most competitive. And they say it every year, but this year it seems from the outside it is the most competitive.
100%. Not that any Six Nations before this was easy. As you know, it's a tough old slog. It's a marathon, definitely not a sprint. But there's no easy games at all, and it's only going to get harder.
What do you remember your debut? 2017 was your first Six Nations campaign, and you had a real sort of stratospheric rise into international rugby. What was that debut like?
I guess the thing that stands out for me was just how proud all the fans are of their home nation, and like it's a real. On the field, obviously, it's a real rivalry, but against any team you play at international level. But I always feel everything's always heightened during Six Nations. You know, when you're playing Wales at the Principality, you know, one of the best arenas you can go into as a sportsman in the Six Nations. And I guess kind of that sense of pride probably stood out for me when I first experienced that in 2017.
What home game at Twickenham do you look forward to most? Maybe best atmosphere, biggest rivalry? What's the best game to play at home?
Anytime you play at Twickenham, it's a massive occasion, as you know, but I'd say when we played the All Blacks, that was special. And obviously during the Haka, got the Swing Low, Sweet Chariot. We narrowly lost out in that game. Sam Underhill scored a try in the last second of the game, if you remember that. That got disallowed for whatever reason. Yeah, it was. I think Courtney charged it down, he got the ball and then ran 40 metres to score the try in the corner, but I don't know, I think they called offside. Yeah, but that atmosphere that day was special, even though we lost. I think any time you play, you know, Wales, that's always going to be a special atmosphere at Twickenham, Wales or Ireland. But I'd say kind of All Blacks and then those three kind of closely bunched together.
You've had two Six Nations titles, 17, 2020. Anyone stand out in particular? Are they both as special as each other?
They're both as special as each other. 2017 was a massive year in my growth and development. Like I kind of came out of nowhere and kind of burst onto the scene. And then I guess in 2020, I'd kind of been on the scene for quite a while, and I'd started all those games in that tournament, so it was a kind of different perspective for me as a player, and kind of where I was in my maturation. So both, you know, extremely special, but both kind of very different.
You're known for being a very diligent professional, and you struck me as a very diligent professional in 2017 when I first met you. Is that something that you've nurtured, or have you always had that mindset from a young age?
It's definitely something that I've nurtured, but I didn't have that mindset from a young age. Like I would say I was always been very naturally gifted and talented, and I guess it's something that I pride myself on, again, in terms of actions and doing all the stuff away from the club as well. I pride myself kind of on my recovery. I've got any kind of recovery kit, any tool that is used for recovery, I would say I've got it. You know, I'm fortunate that I've got my own gym. You know, I get treatment outside of the club 2 or 3 times a week. So I've got to make sure I'm on top of my game. As a wise person told me once, your best ability is availability. So that's something I always want to pride myself on, is being available, not just in these big tournaments, you know, with Six Nations, but week in and week out for Bristol. Because I'd say, in my position as a tight head prop, it's not one of them positions you can kind of just not play for a few weeks and then slip in and perform. You need to kind of get your eye in and play week in and week out. So it's hard work, but it's something that I do love it. I wouldn't have it any other way.
So on to watches. I would guess you're like a big blingy kind of watch guy. what kind of watch guy are you? What is your type of watch?
Well, it's funny you say big blingy. I would say maybe like when I was 21, 22, you know, I'd probably go for something that's quite out there and in your face. And now I've matured like a fine wine and continue to mature. I like just something that's vintage, understated, but very classy, like myself, obviously. So I'd say that's kind of like my style, kind of understated, but very vintage and very classy.
So at the moment you're wearing the new Breitling Chronomat. What did you like about that watch? Because that's a beauty.
I guess I was just drawn to the design, the green dial. It's hard for us to not just get clothes, but watches and stuff that tend to fit. You know, as soon as I put this on, it just felt right. So I'm very, very fortunate to be wearing this.
You could achieve your 50th cap in this year's Six Nations. I know you always want to look at just the next game. That would put you in an elite group of England players ever. What would that mean to you to get 50 caps if you did achieve it?
Touch wood, touch wood. As you know, never take it for granted. Obviously, there's a few more games to be played, and then anything can happen in training and then in the games in the Six Nations. But if I was to achieve my 50th cap against Wales at home, at Twickenham in front of a capacity crowd, that would be honestly a dream come true. And to potentially achieve 50, we all can't have 78 odd like yourself, Warbs, but we can only strive for that. But no, personally, it'd mean a lot for me.
What would mission accomplished look like for you?
I would say first and foremost is to be the most successful rugby player I can be, the best version of myself. To add another layer onto it, I think, I know the privileged position that I'm in as a sportsman at the level I play at, in terms of the level of attention we get, especially when we play for our international countries. And I think it's important that we use our platform to inspire the next generation. And that's something that I, if I'm being honest, only realised in 2019 when England, we got to the World Cup final. And just how the country got behind us. I remember coming back home and people were coming up to me and admitting, they're not really the biggest rugby fan, but have heard the team and obviously watched the team throughout the campaign and how proud they were of us, and how my story in particular inspired their daughter or their son to pick up rugby or to kind of stay on the straight and narrow. And I guess that's my goal, is obviously to be a successful rugby player, but through my own platform, the Recusance, to inspire the next generation of kids kind of coming through, not just in sport, but anyone who's going through a tough time, who needs guidance, who needs clarity. It's just trying to give back to the community, because I don't think we understand as sports people how influential we are. Like when I go and watch my little brother and sister play rugby, I would go and watch them on the weekend, and they're doing things that we were doing on the field, like celebrations, kicking styles and kicking techniques and so on and so forth. So I think it's definitely massive, but obviously with great power comes great responsibility. So it's something that I'm keen on doing, is inspiring the next generation.
Well, Sinks, thanks for your time. You've got a busy campaign ahead of you, so appreciate you coming down to Breitling. All the best for the Six Nations.
Cheers, Warbs.
I wish you luck, mate. Cheers.